The galactic community prided itself on diplomacy. Thousands of species, each with their own histories, cultures, and biologies, formed a tapestry of coexistence. Sure, disputes erupted now and then, some over resources, others over borders or grudges centuries old. But conflict was generally muted by the rules of the Federation, the guiding body of peace. When all else failed, the Federation relied on the practice of deterrence diplomacy. No one wanted to risk inciting a war that could ripple across so many systems. But one species was always watched with uneasy eyes: humans. From the quiet agricultural collectives of the Agrilex to the pacifist councils of this island, humans were always labeled with a word that set them apart: Deathworlders. Born on a planet classified as one of the most dangerous in known space, they were a species shaped by adversity and hardship, by an environment where survival was never guaranteed. But against all odds, humanity had joined the Federation peaceably, even advocating for it. Many found it unsettling. What were Deathworlders doing pretending to be nice? There were still myths whispered across the galaxy about Earth's terrible beasts, violent storms, poisonous flora, and razor-tusked predators. But the humans wore their designation with a peculiar pride, something the galactic community had come to find charming, almost quaint. No one knew how far this charm would stretch until the incident in the HFY sector. The HFY sector was a constellation of frontier colonies and trade outposts, rich in minerals and rare elements coveted by powerful corporations and independent miners alike. When the HFY Dominion, a sprawling empire known for its cold, calculating ambition, swept through the sector, it barely made a sound. They claimed planets, station by station, leaving little resistance in their wake. It was efficient, ruthless, and a matter of paperwork before the Federation took notice. But the HFY had made a critical mistake. They didn't consider the Terran mining colony on Janus IV. Janus IV was no diplomatic hub. It wasn't a strategic military installation, nor did it boast significant Federation influence. It was a small, rugged colony, populated by human miners, engineers, and their families. 100,000 lives bound by necessity rather than love for the Federation's ideals. The Dominion struck during the night cycle. Holodrones broadcasted a message from a sleek HFY general clad in ornate battle armor, his voice cool and dismissive. This colony is now under the protection of the HFY Dominion. Resistance will be met with annihilation. Compliance ensures safety and order. The initial wave of Dominion soldiers swept through without incident, disarming the few guards at checkpoints, locking down the colony's comms, and securing the mines. The locals didn't resist. Human colonists complied with their new overseers without so much as a sneer, obeying commands, working alongside the Dominion's taskmasters, and swallowing whatever indignities were thrown their way. To the HFY, it seemed the famed Deathworlders had turned out to be disappointingly tame. They didn't understand the humans, didn't realize that on Janus IV, they'd awoken a sleeping beast. 3 weeks into the occupation, the Dominion's first tactical error was made. HFY soldiers seized a shuttle for the Dominion's use, displacing a group of human medics set to transfer a critically ill patient to a better-equipped hospital off-planet. The medics pleaded, explaining that their patient's chances were slipping by the hour, but the soldiers responded with nothing but stony indifference. The patient, a little girl no older than 6, died before the next sunrise. The colonists grieved quietly, but deep within, something had changed. The HFY were about to learn the cost of taking kindness for weakness. It began with subtle defiance. Equipment went missing. Diagnostic computers were suddenly rife with glitches. Supply chains experienced inexplicable delays. Dominion officers scoffed at the apparent incompetence of the human labor force, chalking it up to the inherent ineptitude of a Deathworlder colony. But the little things began to add up. Their vehicles started breaking down on routes, seemingly minor mechanical failures spiraling into full-blown malfunctions. Protective gear worn by Dominion troops started malfunctioning in accidents during minor maintenance. And one by one, the HFY began to fall sick. Diarrhea, migraines, debilitating fatigue, all just enough to put them out of commission for a day or two. The colony's health officers offering plenty of sympathy but not a single cure. Then the messages started to appear, scrawled in human language where only they would understand. Do not mistake our mercy for weakness. Deathworlders, remember. Count your days, HFY. The officers dismissed the graffiti as primitive rebellion, increasing their patrols and rationing supplies, furthering their hold on Janus IV. But there was no stopping the silent sabotage, no tracking it to its source. The humans were ghosts, every face smiling and compliant during the day, yet every move an echo of defiance. By the end of the second month, the Dominion officers were openly fearing the night cycles, when patrols vanished into the mines and never returned. The humans had begun a methodical removal of the Gavhar forces, leaving no bodies, no evidence, just the growing silence of vanished soldiers. It was Gavhar General Mirkas himself who finally cracked, calling a private conference with the colony's leader, a retired miner named Lena Morales. He stood before her in a hastily assembled war room, his armor flashing with Dominion insignia. The meeting, broadcast live for the Gavhar forces, was meant to showcase his dominance. "This defiance is futile, Morales. We are the Dominion. You are but Deathworlders with charming toys." Lena gave him a look so cold that Mirkas felt it behind his sternum. "General, we were willing to leave you in peace. You took our kindness and spat on it. We buried a little girl. Her name was Emma, because of you." The general scoffed. "One child lost. And for that, you'd rebel against a power that spans 100 systems." She leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. "We're not rebelling, General. We're evicting you." He had no time to respond before the colony's lights went out, one by one, the rumble of detonations from the mines shattering the quiet. Gavhar soldiers scrambled, only to find the humans had booby-trapped every corridor, every emergency exit, leaving the Dominion forces to scramble for survival amidst the roar of collapsing tunnels. As the lights flickered back, a single hollow screen came to life before the general, displaying Lena's face, weathered and grim, her eyes sharp with resolve. "When you tell the story, General," she said softly, "remember that we tried to be nice." Across the galaxy, species would tell stories of the day the Deathworlders stopped being nice. It was the day humanity reminded the stars that mercy was not the same as weakness, and that Deathworlders were not just survivors. They were the unyielding force that would defend their own, no matter the cost. And it was the last day the Gavhar Dominion would ever try to occupy Janus IV. The Federation received the news of the Gavhar Dominion's retreat from Janus IV 2 days later. To the galaxy, it seemed like an improbable event. A tiny, isolated colony had held its ground against one of the most formidable empires in the known universe, and had forced them out. News of the Deathworlders' defiance spread like wildfire, whispered across marketplaces, discussed in secret meetings, and dissected by tacticians who tried and failed to understand how the humans had achieved the impossible. From her modest office on Janus IV, colony leader Lena Morales was exhausted. She was a hero to her people, but victory had left her battered. The price had been high, dozens of colonists lost in the skirmishes, essential infrastructure damaged beyond repair, and a Federation investigation looming on the horizon. And then the Federation delegation arrived. The Federation's investigative team was led by Overseer Arkol, a silent elder whose soft-spoken wisdom had diffused many a galactic crisis. Beside him was an assortment of officials, negotiators, security advisors, and even a scientist or two, all gathered to assess the situation. Lena Morales sat across from them in a stark briefing room, her back straight, her face neutral, her hands clasped on the table. The humans had set this room up carefully. No armed guards, no signs of hostility, only a clean, minimal space, yet the tension was undeniable. Overseer Arkol leaned forward, his many eyes studying her with curiosity and caution. "We appreciate your willingness to speak with us, Ms. Morales. The Federation has received concerning reports about the events that transpired here." She nodded. "I'm sure you have. I'd expect nothing less." According to Dominion representatives, he continued, choosing his words with care, "Your colony engaged in sabotage, insurrection, and acts of aggression, actions that they claim to be violations of Federation principles. You risked destabilizing an entire sector with your actions." Lena's expression didn't waver. "They invaded our home, Overseer. They took control of our resources, endangered our people, and they let a child die. We fought back, yes, wouldn't you?" A murmur passed through the Federation representatives. Some looked uncomfortable, while others nodded, unable to dismiss the raw justice in her words. Overseer Arkol's gaze was piercing. "The Federation's concern, Ms. Morales, is not about your right to defend yourselves. It is about the methods employed. Reports of systematic sabotage, psychological tactics, and the unconventional treatment of Dominion forces paint a picture of tactics bordering on." "What?" she interrupted, her voice hardening. Tactics bordering on what, exactly? The overseer paused, sensing her steel but pressing on. On cruelty, Ms. Morales. A brutality that we didn't expect from humans. You're known as Deathworlders, yes, but your reputation within the Federation has been one of moderation, adaptability, peace. She let out a bitter laugh. Peace, she echoed. You think peace is the same as passivity. You think we became Deathworlders because we enjoy suffering, because we're eager to dish it out. Her voice softened, but her eyes burned. Peace was always our choice. But sometimes you have to make sure that others understand that kindness is a choice, not a weakness. The silence in the room was heavy. Overseer Arkell leaned back, his eyes narrowing slightly. If this escalates, it could have severe consequences, Ms. Morales. For all humans, for your status in the Federation. Your colony's defiance could lead to sanctions, or worse, expulsion. Lena didn't flinch. Then let me ask you this. Overseer, what does the Federation's peace mean if it can be shattered by an aggressor who believes it's only maintained by fear? What does it mean if the Federation expects us to sacrifice our own and ask for nothing in return? The Overseer hesitated, his expression a mix of sympathy and restraint. Perhaps this is why you were granted membership with such caution. Many of us feared that given the right conditions, Deathworlders would revert to the ways of survival, of conquest. Lena's jaw tightened. So you'd rather humans simply roll over and surrender? Is that the peace the Federation wants? The question lingered in the air, forcing Arkell to face the tension gnawing at the foundation of the Federation itself. Another voice spoke up, a woman with the dark plumage and narrow eyes of the Avani species. She was Counselor Rhea, a known advocate for Federation principles. Ms. Morales, she began, her voice wavering slightly. We are not here to strip you of your rights, but to remind you that certain measures cannot be condoned. The Dominion could demand reparations, perhaps even a formal censure of all human colonies. A smile played at Lena's lips, sharp and knowing. And yet here we sit. You, Overseer Arkell, and Counselor Rhea, and everyone else here, all representatives of a federation that claims neutrality. But you came here in person. Why? Counselor Rhea looked to the Overseer, who gave her a brief nod. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. The Federation cannot afford to be seen as condoning violence, but nor can afford to alienate a species as influential as humanity. The Dominion's request for reparations was declined, but tensions remain. Your actions have sparked unease across the galaxy. We're here to advise caution and to discuss what this means for human colonies going forward. Lena's voice was steady, resolute. What it means, Counselor, is that humanity has limits. We try to live by Federation ideals. We wanted to be part of a peaceful galaxy. But we've learned that when our backs are against the wall, we're alone. The Overseer's gaze softened. Not necessarily, Ms. Morales. The Federation exists to support its members. But many here fear your species now more than ever. It is your response to this occupation that's caused the fear. Fear, she repeated, a cold smile playing across her lips. Good. If that's what it takes to ensure no one invades another human colony, I'll take it. Because we will not let another Janus Ivy happen. Ever. A silence fell over the room as the Overseer and his team absorbed the weight of her words. There was a tension in the air, a reckoning, perhaps, between Federation ideals and the harsh reality of life as a Deathworlder. At last, Overseer Arkell rose, his movements slow and deliberate. We understand you, Ms. Morales, and we will bring your message to the Council. But I must caution you. If humanity chooses to take this path, there will be repercussions. You will be known as warriors, as conquerors. You may gain respect, yes, but fear and suspicion as well. Lena's expression softened, and for a moment, her resolve gave way to a weary compassion. We're already called Deathworlders, Overseer. Let them fear us if they need to. But maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice before they try to make us victims again. She stood, offering her hand, a gesture of humanity's enduring principles of peace, even as they prepared to stand alone. Overseer Arkell took it, his many eyes unreadable. Then let it be known that the Federation understands you, and that we hope, for all our sakes, that your strength will protect rather than destroy. As the delegation left Janus IV, stories of the Deathworlders' stand and their unyielding leader spread, growing into something that would haunt aggressors for years. Lena's words became a silent promise echoed across human colonies. Kindness is our choice, not our weakness. And the galaxy, for the first time, truly understood what it meant to live among Deathworlders. Months had passed since the Federation delegation's tense visit to Janus IV. The colony had returned to something like normalcy, but the scars of the Dominion occupation ran deep. Lena Morales still remembered the weary, haunted looks in the eyes of her people, the unspoken question that had settled like ash in every corner of Janus IV. Would they be left to stand alone again? For all the Federation's promises of neutrality and protection, humanity knew now that their survival hinged on their own strength. That was a dangerous revelation, not just for humanity, but for every species who had believed that peace and protection could be bought by trust alone. And then the unthinkable happened. A message came through Federation channels, carrying a warning that turned every head in the galaxy. The Dominion was preparing for war. The Gavhar Dominion's invasion plans spread like wildfire. Worlds on the edges of Federation space scrambled to reinforce their borders, terrified of the vengeance that was coming. Rumors filled every communication relay, warning of the Dominion's warships amassing in hidden sectors, of entire fleets positioned to reclaim what they had lost on Janus IV and more. This time, they wouldn't come with blaring announcements and polite ultimatums. This time, they would scorch their way across Federation space, and they wouldn't stop until every trace of human defiance was erased. A crisis council was assembled at the Federation's core world, Andalus. It was a rare sight. The massive, shining council chambers filled to the brim with ambassadors, tacticians, scientists, and military leaders from nearly every corner of the galaxy. At the head of the room, Overseer Arkell watched the gathering storm of fear, arguments, and proposals swirling around him. Order. I call for order. His voice, calm but commanding, managed to bring a semblance of quiet to the room. He cleared his throat and addressed the assembly. Today we face an unprecedented threat. The Dominion has chosen to respond to recent events with an act of aggression against the Federation, and we must determine a course of action. But know this, our response may very well determine the future of the Federation. A diplomat from the Agrolix spoke up, her voice wavering. If we resist, the Gavhar could bring ruin to us all. Their numbers are greater, their technology is no more advanced than any other members, interrupted a new voice. The room fell silent as the speaker stepped forward, her presence imposing yet calm. Lena Morales had arrived, her every step carrying the weight of Janus IV's resilience. Thank you, Overseer Arkell, for allowing me to speak on behalf of humanity, she said, her voice steady. She looked around the room, locking eyes with every species present, her gaze unwavering. I come to clarify what humanity's response to this threat will be. We don't want a war. We want peace. But if the Dominion believes it can bully and threaten us, they will learn, once again, that we will not bend. Arkell leaned forward. Ms. Morales, surely you know the repercussions of such defiance. If the Federation aligns with humanity in an open conflict, we risk a galaxy-wide war. Lena nodded. I understand the risk. But what is the alternative? Surrendering to bullies and tyrants. The Gavhar Dominion wants everyone to be afraid, to submit to their demands. If we allow them to crush us, every species in this room will face the same fate, eventually. She glanced around the chamber, her voice strong and impassioned. The Federation was formed to protect against exactly this kind of aggression. We came to this alliance in good faith. Humanity wants to stand with the Federation, but we need to know if the Federation is willing to stand with us. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. A slender figure in the crowd, a Charet diplomat with deep green scales, stood to address her. Ms. Morales, if we stand with you, we face the loss of everything we've built. Our people would be in danger. Our cities. And so would ours, Lena replied firmly. The Dominion doesn't care if we're different species. They see weakness, and they exploit it. You've all seen it in the past. Who yet hasn't felt the sting of their occupation? Today, it's humanity. Tomorrow, it could be the Charet, the Agrolix, even the Thylon. If we let the Dominion dictate our peace, we have no peace at all. Overseer Arkell shifted, his many eyes reflecting a rare blend of hope and resignation. What you propose, Ms. Morales, is a federation that fights. A federation that is willing to engage in open warfare, a drastic change from our principles. But if we accept this, it must be done with a united resolve. A new voice cut through the silence. Then let us make that choice. The speaker was General Mlak, a towering figure from the Avani, whose calm voice held an edge of steel. The Dominion would seek to conquer, but we have a chance to show them that the Federation will not be cowed. If the Deathworlders are willing to risk their lives for our peace, then we must be willing to do the same. The room fell silent. It was a grave decision, one that could fracture the Federation or forge it into something stronger. At last, Overseer Arkol rose, his posture one of resolve. "Very well," he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "By unanimous consent, we shall not yield to the Dominion's demands. The Federation will stand with humanity, and together, we shall protect our worlds from tyranny." A cheer went up, a sound of fierce determination, of hope given form. The galaxy would not stand by and let tyranny swallow them all. The declaration sent shockwaves through the known systems. For the first time in its history, the Federation was preparing for war. Defensive alliances were reinforced, battle-ready ships took formation, and technology long relegated to storage was pulled from the depths of research facilities. Training regiments for species unaccustomed to combat were initiated, and the humans became the reluctant but steadfast teachers in the art of defense. On Janus IV, Lena watched as her fellow colonists prepared, repairing the infrastructure damaged during the occupation, fortifying defenses, and training to protect what was theirs. She knew the burden they bore, and she knew that other colonies, other worlds, were now doing the same. At the heart of it all was humanity, once scorned for its status as Deathworlders, now the galvanizing force behind the Federation's first alliance against an outright aggressor. In the cold reaches of space, at the edge of Federation territory, Dominion ships amassed, their dark hulls stretching across the stars in a show of overwhelming force. Inside the command center of the lead vessel, Gavhar General Mirka stood, watching as the Federation worlds appeared on the screens. His expression was one of amusement tinged with contempt. "They think they can stand against us," he murmured to his officers. "This alliance of weaklings and pacifists will crumble before our might." But as his fleet began its final approach, preparing to tear through Federation defenses, the first Federation ships walked into view, human ships among them, their sleek forms bristling with weapons, flanked by ships from species across the galaxy. It was a sight he hadn't anticipated, a show of unity that defied the Gavhar's expectations. On board the Federation flagship, Lena Morales watched the Dominion forces with a steely determination, her voice calm as she addressed her crew. "Remember, this isn't just a fight for Janus IV. This is for everyone who believes that strength should protect, not oppress. Today, we show them that the Federation will not bend." A murmur of agreement went through the bridge, and as the Federation fleet surged forward to meet the Dominion head-on, every species that had once doubted the humans felt a surge of pride, of strength, and of an unbreakable resolve that would echo through the stars. The day humanity and the Federation chose to fight together marked a turning point, a day when kindness was backed by strength, when peace was defended with fire. And in the years to come, every species would tell stories of the day the Deathworlders showed the galaxy what it truly meant to protect. The first clash between the Federation and the Dominion fleets was ferocious, a meeting of metal and fire at the edge of Federation space. Ships from every corner of the galaxy, sleek, fragile vessels from pacifist planets, broad, formidable warships from old militaristic alliances, and the sharp, deadly silhouettes of Terran ships stood together against the Dominion's advance. For the Dominion, this was meant to be a lesson, a brutal show of power to remind the Federation of its place. For the Federation, this was something far more critical, a stand for survival, a refusal to be bullied, and for humanity, a reckoning. Lena Morales felt the subtle hum of the Resolute, the Federation's newly commissioned flagship, as she surveyed the tactical display on the bridge. Positioned alongside her were captains and officers from dozens of species, their faces reflecting both fear and determination. Some were young, fresh from their homeworlds, thrust into the fray for the first time. Others were veterans, but all looked to Lena for a strength that they hoped might steady their own nerves. In the quiet moments before the battle began, she turned to the room of interspecies officers, her voice steady. "Today we fight together, not because we want war, but because we demand peace, and peace must sometimes be fought for." She looked at each of them, her eyes locking with the Xylan strategist, the Avane engineer, the Ksharat weapons master. "The Dominion thinks they know who we are, thinks we're fragile, but our principles make us weak. Today, we show them that unity and strength are not opposites, and that when we fight for each other, we are unbreakable." A chorus of nods passed through the bridge. Here, fear had no place, only purpose. In a black void, a tense silence settled before the eruption of fire. Dominion ships poured in from warp space, flanking the Federation forces with cold precision. The Resolute led the charge, flanked by Terran and Xylan fighter squadrons, their energy shields glowing with the first impacts. Dominion interceptors darted forward, a storm of sleek, black ships swarming with ruthless, disciplined speed. Human pilots, their faces hardened by experience and resolve, maneuvered through the onslaught, calling out targets and warnings across the Federation comms. "Keep formations tight," Lena's voice ordered, calm but with the unmistakable edge of command. "Protect the smaller ships. Remember, our strength is in each other." An Avani frigate took a brutal hit, energy shields flickering. But before the Dominion could finish it off, 2 Terran cruisers cut in, absorbing the damage as the Avani ship pulled back for repairs. Across the battlefield, ships moved with practiced coordination, human and alien forces weaving together in defensive patterns and counterattacks, each protecting the other. The Federation was not a group of solo actors. They were one organism, interconnected, fighting with a synergy that startled the Dominion forces. For General Merkas, watching from the Dominion's command ship, the scene was unsettling. The Federation fleet should have been in Desare by now, scrambling in panic, their weaker ships buckling under the Dominion's superior force. But they held their lines with an unyielding unity that defied his expectations. "What are they doing?" he muttered, his frustration breaking through his otherwise collected facade. "These species are supposed to be disorganized, weak." A tactical officer, nervous but precise, answered, "Sir, their formations are adapting faster than expected. The humans, they're reinforcing the weaker ships, keeping our attacks from isolating them." Merkas slammed his fist onto the console, his irritation now anger. "Then we cut off the head. Target the Resolute, break their symbol, and the rest will fall." Back on the Resolute, Lena's display lit up with a series of red warnings as a surge of Dominion ships zeroed in on their position. "They're coming for us." Her second-in-command, a Ksharat named Tan, growled, his voice strained with urgency. "They're trying to break our morale." Lena's gaze was steady. "They think we'll shatter if they hit us hard enough. Let them come. Prepare the forward batteries and launch interceptors. Protect the shield generators at all costs." The bridge was alive with activity, officers barking orders and coordinating defense patterns as the Dominion ships closed in. It was a battle unlike any the Federation had faced before, one that tested not only their combat skills, but the bonds they'd built in those long, uncertain months of preparation. The first wave of Dominion fire hit with brutal force. The Resolute shook, lights dimming as its shields absorbed the impact. Crew members steadied themselves, their faces set in grim determination. On Lena's command, the ship's weapons unleashed a barrage of retaliatory fire, tearing through the Dominion line, the energy pulses streaking like burning comets against the darkness. "Keep focus," Lena ordered, her voice cutting through the chaotic comms. "We're holding the line." The Dominion ships tightened their assault, surrounding the Resolute, and just as they prepared for a final strike, the Federation fleet moved in a coordinated counteroffensive. Led by Terran cruisers and Ksharat fighters, they hit the Dominion flanks, forcing them to shift focus and abandon their siege on the Resolute. In the heat of the battle, a Dominion battleship broke through, its weapons aimed directly at the Resolute's weakened shields. For a heartbeat, Lena saw the firing sequence lock onto them. She braced herself, knowing they were moments from a direct hit. But then, a Xylan frigate, barely half the size of the Dominion ship, threw itself into the path of the blast. The frigate's shields exploded on impact, its hull breaking apart, but its sacrifice bought the Resolute enough time to bring down the Dominion ship with a final, devastating volley. On the bridge, there was a moment of shocked silence. Lena looked at the tactical display where the Xylan ship had been. A quiet grief passed over her, but she took a deep breath, holding back the sorrow for another time. Right now, there was still a battle to win. "Transmit this to all Federation forces," she said, her voice steady, fierce. "Honor those who fall by fighting harder. We hold the line for all of us." The battle raged on for hours, with every Federation ship fighting like it was their last stand. The Dominion forces, relentless at first, began to falter, their tight formations unraveling under the ferocity of the Federation's counterattacks. For every ship they lost, the Federation struck back twice as hard, uniting through a fierce, unspoken promise of survival and unity. As the Dominion line began to break, General Lyrikas watched in disbelief, his fury mounting as he saw his once indomitable fleet falter. "Impossible," he whispered, his voice laced with disbelief. "These are Deathworlders and weaklings. They shouldn't be able to do this." His tactical officer turned, a face pale. "They're fighting as if they'd rather die than let us advance. And in that moment, Mirakas understood something that sent a chill down his spine. The Federation wasn't simply fighting to survive. They were fighting with a resolve born of the realization that they had no choice but to defend each other. Humanity had shown them that kindness was only half of what made peace possible. The other half was strength, and in that strength, they'd found something more powerful than the Dominion's ruthlessness: solidarity. The Dominion's morale broke, its fleet withdrawing with disarrayed maneuvers as the Federation forces pressed the advantage. Ship by ship, the Dominion retreated, their once invincible front collapsing under the weight of the Federation's fierce, relentless unity. When the last of the Dominion ships walked out of Federation space, a quiet fell over the fleet. Across comm channels, a single voice came through, Overseer Arkel's voice, proud but solemn. The Federation stands united. On the bridge of the Resolute, Lena sat back, exhaustion and relief mingling in her expression. Around her, shears began to rise, an outpouring of joy and resilience, as species who had never fought together now shared a victory. As the adrenaline began to ebb, Lena felt the weight of those they had lost, their lives woven into the victory they'd fought for. But she knew deep down that their sacrifice had secured something far greater, a bond among the Federation's worlds that no invasion could break. Years later, when the Federation spoke of the battle, they would call it the Day of Resolve, a tale of defiance and strength that spread across every world. And every species would tell the story of how humanity, those famed Deathworlders, had led them through darkness, not with ruthlessness, but with a strength tempered by the promise of peace. The aftermath of the battle left a quiet, solemn feeling across Federation space. What had once been a loosely united group of worlds, held together by fragile diplomacy, now felt different, a unified force that had withstood one of the galaxy's most feared powers. On board the Resolute, the celebrations were subdued. Many crew members had lost friends, allies, some of whom they had only just met in the days leading up to the battle. Lena Morales walked through the corridors, acknowledging the silent nods and exhausted salutes of her crew, knowing they shared her mixture of relief, pride, and grief. They had stood together, yes, but victory had not come without a cost. In the days that followed, the Federation declared an official remembrance for the fallen. It was a modest but solemn affair, broadcast across countless systems. From colonies as small as Janus IV to the vibrant Federation capital of Andolis, billions of citizens paused to remember the lives that had been given in defense of peace and unity. Lena was invited to speak at the event, and though she felt a great weariness, she accepted, knowing that her words would echo across the stars. She stood on a simple podium on Janus IV, with only a small camera transmitting her image to the thousands gathered on Andolis and the countless others watching across worlds. She took a deep breath, her gaze steady. To the families of those we lost, I extend humanity's deepest gratitude. We honor your sacrifice, and we carry your memory forward as a part of our own strength. To the people of the Federation, let this be a reminder that peace cannot be achieved by words alone. Peace is something we choose every day, and it's something we fight for, not because we love war, but because we value what we've built together. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle. The Dominion thought they could intimidate us, that they could bully us into submission. But we showed them, and we showed ourselves, that our unity is stronger than their fear. A solemn, respectful silence filled the air as her transmission ended. Lena walked back into the crowd, where her people awaited her, human and alien alike, bound by something far more lasting than any formal alliance. While the galaxy remembered the battle as the day of Federation unity, the Dominion, humiliated and reeling, retreated into their sectors. Reports of internal struggles within their ranks spread, their leadership fractured over the failed campaign. For the first time, the Dominion's formidable reputation had been shaken, and other species, long oppressed by them, began to rise up. It was as if the Federation's defiance had ignited a spark across the galaxy. For humanity, however, the victory carried a new weight. Humanity's reputation as Deathworlders, once a cautious label whispered in diplomatic circles, had transformed into something more tangible. Fear, yes, but also respect. Some saw humanity as a species of terrifying resilience, willing to go to any length to protect its own. And with that newfound strength came unexpected consequences. Diplomats across the Federation soon found themselves flooded with offers, species and systems eager to align with humanity, to secure their own future against the potential threats looming in the galaxy. Suddenly, humanity was no longer the species striving to fit in. They were leaders, protectors, the ones willing to fight for peace and justice. Overseer Arkell visited Janus Ivy personally some weeks later. Lena met him on the same observation deck where she had first welcomed the Federation's delegation before the battle. He watched the distant stars, his many eyes reflecting the quiet light, his posture more humble, thoughtful. "Ms. Morales," he said after a long silence, "there are many who say that humanity has forever changed the Federation. Some speak of this with fear, others with hope. They see you as both a threat and a savior." Lena nodded, understanding the complexity of his words. "I suppose it's natural. Our actions left an impression. But I didn't come here to change the Federation, Overseer. We came here to be part of something greater than ourselves, to build a future with all of you." Arkell's gaze softened. "And you did. But humanity has always carried a unique burden. You're Deathworlders, yes, but there's more to it than that. You have this paradox, this ability to survive at all costs, and yet you strive for peace. It's a strength unlike any the galaxy has seen." She glanced at him, thoughtful. "We fight to protect peace, but it's a choice we've had to make again and again, because we know what it's like to lose, and we know that without peace, survival becomes a hollow thing." The Overseer nodded, his many eyes reflecting the stars. "The Federation will be better for your strength. You've given us something we lost, courage, and unity forged in the fires of shared struggle." He paused, his expression distant. "But courage can sometimes be a dangerous gift. Many may look to you as a leader in times of crisis, Ms. Morales. They'll expect you to stand at the forefront of every fight." Lena sighed, her expression resolute. "I know, and we'll help where we're needed. But I hope that we'll also remind them that peace isn't just something we fight for, it's something we live for." Arkell's face softened into a rare smile. "Wise words from a Deathworlder. Perhaps in time we will learn from you not only the strength of defiance, but also the strength of restraint. Perhaps that will be humanity's legacy." She smiled back, a tired but genuine smile. "Then it's a legacy worth fighting for." The months stretched into years, and the galaxy changed. In the wake of the battle, Federation species that had once been wary of one another grew closer, recognizing that they shared not only a desire for peace, but a willingness to protect it. Humanity, though still new, became a central force in Federation diplomacy and security. Colonies and stations found themselves strengthened by new alliances and unexpected friendships, forged in the fires of that battle.